Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Foreman, and today we're going to talk about the Stretch EPS Tech Cork Carbon stand-up. The first question right out of the blocks is, what does Cork do for your stand-up paddleboarding? Cork is good for two things. One, it's a great layer in the construction for absorbing vibration that's coming through the board. Secondly, it's also good for the strength of the deck of the board so the deck doesn't crush. So talking about the vibration, Stretch is using Cork in a lot of his boards, especially the boards that are going at high speeds or that are prone to vibration. So if you think about all of his tow boards, all of his big wave guns, his kite surf boards, and also his stand-ups. The reason that he uses it on the stand-ups is because the board has a lot of area, so it has the ability to generate a lot of vibration, whether it be wind chop on the wave or grain in the wave or just at the high speed you're going. All of the area of the stand-up is creating vibration and trying to drive it through to the rider. By putting Cork on the deck, it dampens the ride, makes it a silky smooth ride when you're on the face in choppy or high-speed conditions. Makes it easier for you to stay on the board through the turns and through the drops and the cutbacks off the top of the wave. As far as the durability, all of the stand-ups are very prone to crushing underneath where you stand and paddle the board, and then also where you're surfing it. And over time, you're going to get just big dents and big soft spots in the board. The Cork does the same job that a Divinycell or a hard foam would do in sandwich construction, in that it's very strong from being crushed. But the opposite of what Divinycell and hard foam, those harder foams are very, very prone to actually increasing the vibration just because they're so stiff. The Cork is very, very flexible, and it absorbs the vibration while at the same time not allowing the deck to crush. The flexibility of the Cork also makes it a lot easier to wrap around any curvature in the deck profile and the rail, which makes for a nice clean construction. So that's why they're using Cork in the stand-up boards that Stretch is making. All of Stretch's boards, they laminate the Cork into the board. So I'm running my hand on a smooth fiberglass and resin surface right now. I'm not running it over the unexposed Cork deck like what Lost is doing. They keep it inside, then you're going to put a deck pad over it, or you're going to wax it, a combination of a deck pad and wax. So that's what Cork does. The next thing is looking at the carbon rails. The carbon rails are here for a few different reasons. One is to reinforce the rail and prevent any buckles or breakage from happening starting at the rail. Also for that, they have a double stringer running down the center of the blank. The carbon really livens up the flex and gives you good spring in and out of the turns when you're loading your turns. Last, and I think this is probably the most appreciated of what carbon does for stand-up, is it prevents all of the chips that happen in your rail, like when the paddle hits the rail. So if you think about how much just abuse your rails are taking when you're stand-up paddleboarding, it's a lot. It's basically the equivalent of taking an axe and just swinging it at the door of your car and then asking the car manufacturer to make the doors more durable against that. So this was a big problem that stand-up paddleboard manufacturers were having. How do we make this rail stronger so it's not going to chip as easily with that paddle hit? And so with these carbon rails, that's really taking care of a lot of that problem, and you'll be able to get several seasons out of it without any noticeable chipping or damage from those paddle hits. Talking about the shape of this board, all the manufacturers are going shorter and wider, especially in a surf design like this is. And to do that effectively, you got to keep a close eye on the outline curve of the board, because if you go really short and really wide, then you have a ton of outline curve, which is not going to be stable at speed. It'll be wobbly when you're trying to turn the board. So the way to effectively do it is to widen, to go to that width quickly. So you're going to see that the nose shapes on these boards, they bull out very quickly. So they come to a point, but they start getting wide in a pretty quick fashion in the front, and then they get to that max width. And what that does is, by bringing that curve forward and then keeping this curve conservative through here, it allows you to be able to turn the board at high speed and not have it get unstable. So rather than doing kind of the slow, jerky turns, you're able to really still drive a turn the same way that you would drive a 6-foot shortboard or a longer board with a smoother rail line. You can still do the hard snaps off the top, which is what you always want to do in stand-up paddleboarding, because there's a lot of curve back here when you're coming off the top. But in order to have that nice smooth bottom turn, you want to have a realistically conservative curve through that rail line. So bulling out the nose allows you to do that. The tail shape on these are all double wing swallow, keeping the width right to about here, and then starting to drop it down. And also the rail is really rolled off like that, right to that same spot, right to where that first wing is. And what that does is it allows you to roll into the turns easier. That and then the V bottom allows you to roll into the turns easier. But when you're really going and you're going fast, it's got a sharp edge to release the water to maintain that speed, and it's also got a really thin tail in back of that first wing. It starts really thinning out, so when you do need max control and max pivot off the top, reducing that area is going to help you out quite a bit. Looking at the construction of the board, it's a EPS blank made by Marco Foam with a double stringer. It's all epoxy resin. It's Resin Research Ultra Clear epoxy resin and all S-glass fiberglass, which is the most expensive, most durable fiberglass out there and the most performance-oriented fiberglass out there. Carbon on the rails, and then the Cork deck. The board that I have here is an 8.6. They are available 8 foot up to 10 foot. All of them do use vent plugs. Since it is a very large EPS board, you want to be able to vent the board in extreme situations. If you and Mr. T are in the 18 van, the black 18 van is getting super hot down in Miami, or if you're going, if you're taking a jet like a Learjet over to the Cayman Islands to do some international banking, definitely want to open up the vent, make sure that this thing can blow some air. When you go back in the water, make sure you close the vent before you go in the water, because a lot of water is going to pour in this hatch if you got it open. Weight-wise, relatively light. I'd put it in the lightest group. I wouldn't put it as the lightest stand-up board that I've ever picked up, but durability-wise, it's definitely going to last a long time with this Cork deck, with the carbon rails, double stringer, and then the S-glass and epoxy resin construction. This board's going to be around for a while. So excellent performer. Stretch has won Surfing Magazine Shaper of the Year, so the guy definitely knows how to make a stand-up, and a lot of his guys are winning contests all over the world. So having a board like this in your quiver is a definite good thing to add. Very, very stable for their length. The 8.6 with this much volume, it is super stable, and then you get into the 8.10s and 9-footers and 9.6s, and basically anybody could ride one of those boards with a few tries. So very, very great board. The fin setup on these is all quad setup with a center box. So they call that a 4+1. You can either run it as a quad, or you could drop the quad trailers and add a center fin. So these fins would just stay in here. That's a little bit larger forward fin setup with a smaller trailer. That's going to loosen the board up, make it better for pivotal surfing and smaller waves. It's typically like a slow, soft point break. Quad works really good in beach breaks and for generating a lot of down the line speed. So you can fool around with that and see which one you like better. So it's the Stretch EPS Tech Cork Carbon Stand-Up, available at Reel. Give us a call if you have any questions.